Picture this. You're standing in your mother's kitchen on Thanksgiving morning, hands deep in a mixing bowl while 30 guests pile into the living room 2 floors below you. The elevator keeps opening. You can hear the laughter, the clinking glasses, the sound of your sister being introduced to someone important. Again. Your mother appears in the doorway, looks at the half-prepared spread, and says, without blinking, "The Hendersons just arrived. Why isn't the salmon ready?" That was me. November 28th, 2024. I didn't argue, I didn't cry, I didn't tell her that I run a $5.2 million company she has never once asked about, that I have 26 people who show up every morning because of decisions I make, that my name had been in a national business publication 6 weeks earlier. I said nothing. I untied my apron, set it on the counter, and booked a flight to San Francisco. I left behind an empty kitchen and a Thanksgiving dinner that would never get finished. My name is Chloe. I'm 38 years old, and this is how I finally stopped being my family's invisible servant and what happened the moment they had to face that table without me. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's go back to where this really began. 15 years ago, the first Thanksgiving I spent as an adult, November 2009. I was 22, fresh out of college with a business degree and no job offers. The economy had collapsed that year, and I was living back in my childhood bedroom in Seattle, sending applications into a void that sent nothing back. My parents' home was a high-rise condo in Capitol Hill, the kind of place my mother kept immaculate, every surface intentional, every candle in its exact correct holder. 18 guests were coming for Thanksgiving dinner. Extended family, my father's business contacts, neighbors my mother wanted to impress. My mother, Eleanor, walked into the kitchen that morning and said it simply, the way she said most things. "Chloe, you're handling dinner." Not a question, not a request, a scheduling decision she had already made and was now informing me of. I looked up from my laptop. The whole dinner? For 18 people? Megan has her study group later. My younger sister was 19, a college freshman, sitting on the living room sectional, scrolling her phone with the dedication of someone studying absolutely nothing. She needs her energy. I had been awake since 6 drafting cover letters, but I closed the laptop. I spent the next several hours cooking, a full spread, everything from scratch, the kind of meal that takes planning and precision and genuine skill. When guests arrived that afternoon, I was still in the kitchen, apron stained, hair pulled back, carrying out tray after tray. My father, Thomas, stood near the window with a glass of something amber, his hand resting on Megan's shoulder, introducing her to his business partner, a man named Henderson. This is my youngest. She's studying business at UW. Going places, this one. I walked past them with a platter of appetizers. Thomas glanced at me and turned back. Patricia's wife reached for one of the stuffed mushrooms I'd made, and her eyes went wide. "Who made these? These are remarkable." "That's just Chloe," my mother said, the way you'd explain a piece of furniture. "She's between things right now. She has time for cooking." Patricia gave me a small, sympathetic look. I was already heading back to the kitchen. "That's just Chloe." 4 words, perfectly calibrated to contain me. That pattern became the architecture of the next 15 years. Every Thanksgiving, every holiday gathering, every dinner party my parents hosted, I was in the kitchen or setting up or cleaning afterward. Megan was at the table, being introduced, being showcased, being celebrated. I was the background, the help, the one with time for cooking. By 2012, I had started my own business. I called it Aura Strategic Planning. Corporate event coordination, product launches, investor summits, large-scale brand experiences. I mentioned it to my mother once. She was reading something and didn't look up. Planning? Like birthday parties for children? I said no, corporate events, and described what that actually meant. "That's nice. Can you pick up dry cleaning on your way home?" She never asked again. Neither did my father. Neither did Megan. So I stopped offering. I built Aura Strategic Planning in complete silence, inside a family that had decided what I was and saw no reason to look again. Here is what they didn't know. By 2017, I had 8 employees and a proper office in South Lake Union with views of Elliott Bay. By 2021, we were coordinating national events for companies whose names everyone recognizes. By 2024, Aura Strategic Planning had 26 employees, a corner office suite on the 14th floor, and $5.2 million in annual revenue. My CFO and closest professional ally was a man named Daniel, methodical, unflappable, the kind of person who had seen every crisis and approached all of them with the same measured calm. He had been with me since 2015, when Aura was still just me and a spreadsheet. He had watched me build something real, while my family continued to treat my career as a charming distraction. In October 2024, a national business publication ran a full profile on me. The piece called Aura Strategic Planning one of the most quietly powerful event firms in the Pacific Northwest, and described me as someone who had built an empire through precision and an almost instinctive ability to anticipate what a room needs before anyone in it knows they need it. There was a photograph of me in my office, the Seattle waterfront gray and glittering behind me. I never showed my family. I could already hear my mother's response, something about the lighting or how Megan's colleague had also been featured somewhere, or that it wasn't really that big of a deal. So I kept it to myself, the way I kept everything, quietly, carefully, with the discipline of someone who had learned that offering things to people who diminish them is just a faster way to feel small. The San Francisco opportunity arrived on the morning of November 25th, 2024, 3 days before Thanksgiving. I was at my desk, the Elliott Bay ferry cutting a white line through the gray water below, when Daniel knocked on my office door and set his tablet on my desk without a word. An email from Isabella Sterling, CEO of Meridian Pacific Group, a hospitality and real estate conglomerate operating across 12 states, valued at over $4 billion. Subject line, Partnership Proposal, Aura Strategic Planning, Exclusive Services 2025. Meridian Pacific wanted to sign a year-long exclusive contract with us. Every corporate function, every investor dinner, every brand event. Full calendar, full partnership. Proposed contract value, $2.4 million. I read it twice, looked up at Daniel. This is real? I called their legal team to confirm, he said. It's real, but there's a condition. He paused. Isabella Sterling wants to meet you in person before signing. She doesn't finalize partnerships without a face-to-face. The meeting is November 28th, 11 a.m. San Francisco. November 28th, Thanksgiving. Can we push it? Daniel shook his head. She's leaving for Tokyo on the 30th. If we don't have signatures by Thanksgiving, they move to their second choice. Pinnacle Events has been pitching this account for months. Pinnacle, our most aggressive competitor. I understood the stakes immediately. Meridian Pacific wasn't just a contract, it was a signal. Their endorsement would open markets we hadn't touched yet. Losing this to Pinnacle would close some doors we'd been working toward for years. The industry would notice. Momentum would shift. Book the flight, I said. I leave Wednesday night. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Call me. Important. I knew what important meant. In Eleanor's vocabulary, important meant she needed something. I should have waited. I should have spent the next hour reviewing the Meridian Pacific portfolio. But the daughter in me, the one who had spent 38 years hoping that this time, this conversation would be different, picked up the phone. She answered immediately. Finally, I've been trying to reach you. She had sent one text 20 minutes ago. What's going on, Mom? Thanksgiving plans have changed. Megan's work colleagues are joining us, 30 people total. I need you here by 9 Thursday morning. Cooking, setup, all of it. Megan simply cannot manage it on top of everything she's dealing with at work. I looked out at the water. 26 employees, a $2.4 million meeting in 48 hours, a profile in a national business publication sitting in my desk drawer. Mom, I can't. I have a business trip. I'm flying to San Francisco Wednesday night. She laughed. The kind of laugh that isn't really a laugh. San Francisco for what? One of your little corporate luncheons? $2.4 million, the largest contract in my company's history. It's a significant client meeting. I cannot reschedule. Chloe. Her voice dropped into that precise, practiced register I had known my whole life. Your sister has poured herself into her work this year. She needs this Thanksgiving. Her colleagues are important people, potential connections for your father's business. This isn't just a dinner. This matters. For everyone except me, as always. My answer is no. Silence. Sharp intake of breath. You are being completely selfish. Megan gives everything to this family, and you can't put aside one day? I'm not canceling a $2.4 million meeting to cook for 30 people who will never once ask what I do for a living. The words came out steadier than I expected. My answer is no. If you walk away from this family right now, don't expect to walk back. I felt something release in my chest. Not break, release. Like a knot that had been pulled tight for 15 years, finally giving way. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up, sat for a moment in the quiet of my office, and felt underneath the guilt and the grief of it, something I hadn't expected. Relief, clean and absolute. Daniel appeared in my doorway. He had heard enough of these calls over the years to recognize what had just happened. He didn't say anything, he just nodded once and went back to his desk to finalize my travel arrangements. I want to pause here for a moment, because if any part of this story is landing for you, if you've ever felt invisible to the people who were supposed to see you best, I want to hear about it. Type 1 in the comments if you've ever been overlooked by your own family. Type 2 if you've ever had to choose yourself, even when it cost you something. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. There's more coming, and your presence here genuinely matters to me. Now back to the story. I flew out Wednesday evening. Somewhere over the Oregon coast, I pulled out the business publication profile I'd been carrying in my bag since October, the one with my photograph on page 43, and read it the way you read something when you need to remember it's real. I had built something substantial and documented and undeniable, and the people who should have been proudest of me had no idea it existed. I landed in San Francisco just after midnight, checked into my hotel, and slept better than I had in weeks. Isabella Sterling's offices were everything I'd expected. A glass tower in the financial district, floor-to-ceiling views of the bay, the kind of space that communicates authority through restraint. Isabella herself was in her early 50s, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, with the precise warmth of someone who has built something real and knows exactly what that required. Her handshake was firm. "Chloe, I've been looking forward to this." The meeting lasted 55 minutes. She was thorough, reviewed our portfolio clause by clause, asked pointed questions about vendor relationships, contingency protocols, our approach to last-minute pivots. I answered everything with the confidence of someone who had spent 12 years preparing for exactly this kind of conversation, because I had. At 11:58, we both signed the contract. "I read your profile when it came out in October," Isabella said, as her assistant gathered the documents. "Your instinct for what a corporate experience needs to feel like, that's rare. I'm genuinely excited about this partnership." Then, gathering her coat, she mentioned almost offhandedly that she was heading to Seattle for the holiday. Business associates had invited her to their Thanksgiving dinner, the Hargrove family. Thomas Hargrove, construction supply. His daughter Megan is apparently quite sharp. Eleanor Hargrove extended the invitation. I'm told the food is always spectacular. My throat tightened. "I'm sure it will be a lovely evening," I said. She paused at the door, tilting her head. "You know, Hargrove isn't particularly common name in Seattle business circles. Any connection?" "It's more common than you'd think," I said. She nodded pleasantly and left. I sat alone in that conference room for a long time. The signed contract lay on the table in front of me, $2.4 million, representing years of precision and discipline and quiet, relentless work. And somewhere above me, a plane was being prepared to carry Isabella Sterling to my parents' Thanksgiving table, where 30 guests were about to arrive, expecting a meal that no one had made. I thought about it for exactly as long as it took me to order room service. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. I pieced together what happened in Seattle from two sources: a phone call from Patricia Henderson on Friday morning, and a voicemail my father left Saturday that he had clearly re-recorded several times before sending. By 2 o'clock Thursday afternoon, my mother had walked into her kitchen expecting the usual Thanksgiving architecture: the smells, the warmth, every burner working, the evidence of hours of invisible labor. She found cold appliances and bare counters. What followed was an hour of increasingly desperate phone calls. Every catering company in Seattle, booked solid, closed for the holiday, or simply not answering. My father called in every professional favor he had. 3 restaurants declined politely. My mother and Megan made an emergency run to the nearest grocery store and found the prepared food section stripped nearly clean by people who had planned further ahead. By the time guests began arriving at 4, the Hargrove Thanksgiving table held this: 2 store-bought rotisserie chickens in their plastic containers, already going cold, bags of pre-mixed salad, a cheese board assembled in haste, dinner rolls still in the bakery bag. The condo was immaculate. Eleanor's decorative instincts never failed her, but the table told a story the decorations couldn't cover. Isabella Sterling arrived at 5:30. She was gracious, warm, professionally charming. She complimented the apartment, shook hands, exchanged pleasantries with my father about his business. She said nothing about the dinner spread, but Patricia told me later that when Isabella glanced toward the table, something behind her eyes quietly recalibrated. And then Patricia did what Patricia had been doing since smartphones existed. She opened LinkedIn. She found it within 2 minutes, a post from Meridian Pacific's communications team, published that afternoon. A photograph of Isabella Sterling and another woman shaking hands in a San Francisco conference room, the bay visible through the windows behind them. The caption announced a new partnership between Meridian Pacific Group and Aura Strategic Planning. Patricia looked at the photograph. She looked at it again. Then she held up her phone and said, clearly enough for the group nearby to hear, "Thomas, Eleanor, isn't this Chloe?" The room didn't go completely silent. There was still music playing softly, still background conversation at the edges, but in the cluster around Patricia, everything stopped. My mother stared at the screen. My father leaned in, squinting. Megan's face moved through confusion, recognition, and something that looked like the ground shifting under her feet, all in about 4 seconds. Isabella stepped forward, looked at the photograph, and her expression shifted: recognition, then surprise, then something Patricia described as the particular satisfaction of a puzzle solving itself. "Your daughter," Isabella said slowly, "is Chloe Hargrove, the founder of Aura Strategic Planning?" Yes, Chloe is our daughter, but I don't understand. I signed a $2.4 million contract with her this morning. Patricia said the number landed in that room like a stone landing in still water, the initial impact, and then the ripples moving outward in every direction. My father went pale. Megan set down her wine glass with a small, careful click. My mother's expression, that practiced social composure she had maintained for 30 years of dinner parties, simply stopped working. Isabella was not unkind, but she was precise. She mentioned the business profile. Patricia immediately found it and began reading passages aloud while the room gathered around her phone. 26 employees, $5.2 million in annual revenue, a photograph of me in my office, arms folded, the Seattle waterfront behind me, looking like someone who had absolutely nothing left to prove. "Why didn't she tell us?" my mother said, to no one in particular. Isabella's response was quiet and exact. "Perhaps you never asked." Those 4 words fell over the room like a door closing softly but completely. Other guests drifted over, drawn by the energy of the moment. Someone read a passage aloud about Aura's client retention rate. Someone else found my company website on their phone. The rotisserie chickens sat cooling in their containers while 30 people discovered in real time that the woman who had spent 15 years in this family's kitchen had built one of the most respected event firms in the Pacific Northwest, and none of them had known. Before she left, Isabella turned to my parents with a pleasant expression that didn't quite reach her eyes.
She thanked them for the invitation, she called the evening illuminating, and she said she hoped they'd pass along her regards when they next spoke to me. If Chloe hadn't stepped away from this dinner, we might never have met, so in a way, I have your family to thank.
She collected her coat and left. The front door closed behind her, and Patricia said the silence that followed was the kind that has weight. My mother sat down in her own living room like she'd forgotten she lived there. My father disappeared into his study. Megan, Patricia told me, went upstairs and didn't come back down. 30 guests stood in a beautifully decorated condo, eating grocery store chicken, quietly reckoning with everything they had just learned about a woman they had never properly seen. I found out on Friday morning when Patricia called. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I've known your family for 15 years, and I never once asked what you actually did. That was wrong." "You weren't the one who should have been asking," I said. "No," she agreed, "but I want you to know what happened in that room, what Isabella said, what all of us heard." A pause. "Your parents have a great deal to sit with, and the people who were there, I don't think any of us will look at things the same way." I thanked her. I meant it. On December 1st, a handwritten letter arrived from my father. He wrote that he had spent days trying to understand how he had missed what was in front of him for 15 years, that he had seen what he expected to see, and had expected far too little from me, while simultaneously taking far too much. That he didn't ask for forgiveness, only the possibility of a beginning. I read it 3 times, set it on my counter, made coffee. A letter doesn't undo 15 years, but it is, at minimum, something. I called him the following Sunday evening. I told him I was willing to try, and I told him what that required, clearly, professionally, the way I had learned to communicate in every room that had ever taken me seriously. I would attend family gatherings as a guest, not as kitchen staff. My work would be treated as the serious career it was. I would be spoken about the way Megan had always been spoken about, as someone whose achievements were worth acknowledging, or I would simply not be present, not as punishment, as a boundary, as the bare minimum of self-respect. He said that was fair, more than fair. My mother sent a text that week, carefully worded, polished, not ready yet. I could see her working up to something real, and I decided I could wait. Here is what I know now, standing on the other side of all of it. I did not leave that kitchen to punish anyone. I left because I had finally decided at 38 years old, after 15 years of making myself small enough to fit inside someone else's idea of who I was, that my time and my talent and my presence were worth something. You do not need your family's approval to build something real. You do not need to be seen by the people who had the longest chance to see you. Success doesn't require an audience. It only requires you to keep showing up for yourself every single day, even when no one is watching. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk out of a kitchen, book a flight, and let your work speak for itself. The empty table they sat down to that Thanksgiving, that was the most important meal I ever made. If this story resonated with you, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had to choose yourself over what your family expected from you? And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. There are more stories coming, and I read every single one of your comments. Until next time.